At 3 a.m.
You don't need to know what's in it.
Pass it, then you can read it.
It's about
Here's the summary.
where's the cheat sheet? I don't know whose water this is.
Yeah, we were in that meeting yesterday.
I moved it over, but no. I just can't comment on anything I haven't seen.
You're dehydrated. Can't think anymore.
Everybody set?
How do we know if it's recording?
$5 reward.
All right, we will call our August 20th meeting of the Capital Improvement Committee to order. We'll take a roll call, or just write down attendance.
Can we just do attendance?
We do have a quorum, but I can see a little minutes from our meeting in October.
On TV.
I move approval. Second.
To make sure whatever's on there.
Any adjustments to the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries, minutes are approved. Item D will be the new and previous matters. Item 2, the budget to actual of the 2018 capital.
So if you open your booklet, one of the top sheets should be the 2018 plan. We had the departments go through and put the status of the plan from the items from that year, so they're all listed here. Realizing you're just getting them now, but I don't know if you just want to see if there's any questions, or 'cause there's not anything.
Anything would be super highlighted, or just obviously 124th Street?
It's done.
Pete's demise.
Pete's demise.
It's officially open.
I changed that from incomplete to complete,
Oh, good,
so,
'cause, yeah,
I'm gonna take it home today and check it out.
Just for kids.
yes.
It's complete, but we don't have the
Yeah.
costs yet. But
Yeah, you just gotta go check out that new asphalt.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Greenfield's done. Well, that actually was postponed, and now it is done, yes. What else?
Anybody else have any questions?
I see on the Burnham Point revitalization study is actually gonna have a reveal or event on September 7th, and it says kickoff event May 16th.
6th and 7th, right?
It's
Oh, yeah.
September,
September, yeah.
yeah. So that's progressing.
Like National 70 to 76 contract.
There was more to the, due to I thought I took that out.
Oh, you just,
I
just wanted to lay it out there.
Yeah.
I thought I deleted that. I was trying not to make that a part of the record.
But no one's gonna disagree.
It's 99.99% done. The bricks will be here next week.
It's like, what else do they have to do?
Just got unfortunately, they left the bricks at 76th and National, which is the most visible. They left those to last. If they had started with the bricks they had and done that first, then no, we probably would have noticed, but they didn't.
So the contractor missed the deadline, eh?
A little bit, yeah.
Just a little.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I can just update you on one thing. The last thing, under the fire section on the back page, the emergency generator for Station 3, listed as in progress, that is done now. Yes. That got done last week or the week before. One thing off the docket.
There are no other questions then. Not voting on this, correct?
No, just place on file.
Place on file.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item 2 is placed on file. And we will move on to item 3, 2019 Capital Improvement Program process.
Should say progress. Oh, sorry.
Process? Progress. Did I say process? Progress.
The second packet in your book has the 2019 items listed, which were approved. There's a lot of adjustments to the street projects because of the high costs. And yeah, mostly all of them.
The bridge that's being, it just says we're gonna do a bridge. What bridge is it? Again? It's in the middle on 19.
Railroad Bridge Maintenance.
Oh, we're
Maintenance.
painting,
Is it confirmed?
yeah, we have a contractor, Thomas Mason's gonna start painting. Rob met with them today. We gotta work it out with WISDOT. Of course, the gas company is also closing multiple lanes on Highway 100 this fall, so the pre-con's next week, but.
So it's Highway 100 bridge?
Yeah,
Wow, that's a big one.
What color is it gonna be?
blue like the other one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wanna
That's a big
change-
improvement.
Yeah.
I drive past it all the time going, that's such a change.
Mm-hmm.
So September, I think it'll be painted. So,
Approximately how long will that take?
well, they gotta do like a lane at a time. Take 4 weeks or something, because they'll have to work with WISDOT and the gas company if they're closing lanes.
Okay.
It's gonna be tricky. But there'll be lanes closed already
Right.
for the gas company. So we gotta work that out.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman?
I wonder, Peter, if we can talk about it with Milwaukee 68 project, of course, from the south city limit to Greenfield by the freeway, and then it comes up to the Kinnickinnick River Parkway. That stretch, we have a concrete starting from Arthur all the way to Ollie Road,
Right.
but the little stretch there is gonna look kind of shabby.
Yeah, it will.
Not really, because first of all, it's not, I think we need to do something, whether resurface it or with concrete,
And more importantly, it's right by Alderman Vitale's house.
No, mine it is. Mine was taken care.
Well, it's a narrow road, and then it winds up a boulevard, and then Milwaukee's building a smaller boulevard.
And I do believe that we gotta do some improvements from Lincoln all the way from the Parkway, because Milwaukee, talk about reduce the traffic. Milwaukee's doing that. They're doing up to Morgan already. It's all painted, and everything else, and really makes a big difference. So I'm sure they're gonna continue on to Kinnickinnick River Parkway.
Yeah.
That's why we should continue on up to Lincoln Avenue. Because Lincoln Avenue is the biggest problem by the traffic light. When people goes north, they are in the left lane, and then you got people on the inside lane. Supposedly there should be a right turn lane there, left only, and that's it. But what happened, once the traffic started moving north, then most of the time by Schaff, just north of the alley, there's cars parked there. So what really happens, people squeeze down, they shoot up, or, and then, I mean, nothing happens, but what I say, I feel something's good there, something is gonna happen. So, something has to be done on that stretch, because Milwaukee's gonna have one lane, bike lane and parking lane, you know, so.
Well, when we
should
did the
do-
rest of 60th, we actually narrowed it.
Yeah,
'Cause it was 50 feet wide. It was a real weird width. People think it's 4 lanes, but
it's not,
really not.
it's not.
So we kinda just shrunk it up and had more room.
Something that we should maybe think about it, you know.
Before we do that part, though, we'd have to resurface it. I mean, the concrete's not totally shot.
No,
yet, where I
no,
would
no,
rip it
may
out,
just
but-
resurfaces, you know, be a cheaper way, you know, yeah,
Well, I'll look at it. It's not on my 5-year plan yet. but-
yeah, yeah. Very good, Pete. I'm not trying to put up too much stuff on you, you know.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Dave.
On the first page, or page 3 of this document, the last item is storm sewer catch basin cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
We have budgeted 120,000 due to staffing. There will be a surplus there, so that is a potential.
Okay.
On the second page, 3/4 down, sanitary manhole repair replacement. Again, we'll have a shortage or potential extra there due to staffing is.
Okay.
So just don't plan on using that for anything else, because those are utility funds, so those would not be transferable over to any of the other projects, just in case that comes up.
Darn it. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the progress of the program so far?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Alderman Haas.
Yeah, to follow up with you, Dave. So staffing, the issue is you have open positions that you can't fill, so you can't get these jobs done.
Correct, we're in the progress of hiring and recruiting. And right now, we have street personnel collecting refuse and recycling materials, so the street personnel that are actually doing catch basin rebuilds and sanitary rebuilds and concrete pouring, they're actually doing the refuse recycling, filling in for those that are on vacation or.
Okay.
Could you bid out that work?
For the catch basin? Good. It's just a matter of, I guess, how much we would wanna do an RFP,
You have some potential people that are starting to, right?
but street personnel, individual, starting on Monday. We had 2 crew members or truck drivers start last Monday. But we still have about 8 or 9 positions within sanitation streets.
Should we change to continuous recruitment for the truck driver positions?
They are continuous, correct, yep. So if you know anybody, knows
Yeah.
anybody.
It seems surprising to me. That seems like a great job. All those jobs in public works, if you want to work outside. I'm surprised, but I guess the economy's going great, and so that's an indication.
Kind of like in our discussions that we had, usually it's between municipalities, so we are getting a strong participation with City of Milwaukee.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been hiring
Bring in
all the individuals there.
We got 2.
Yeah.
So maybe we should do an update on the street lighting, because I know some people have been more involved in it than others, so maybe just for the committee.
So
Big project.
based on the street lighting conversion, there's X amount of dollars that was with engineering with the project, $200,000. All of that was to relamp a circuit. Doing that, there was it 2 attempts for contractor? Just one?
Just one.
And the
It's
bids that
returned.
came back were either lacking or expensive. So the Department of Public Works, with the assistance of the council, we purchased a boring machine, and then we have 4 designated individuals, and we have revamped or in the process of doing one circuit, kind of in the test area, F1 it's called. And we're pretty much concluding that, and then we're on to another circuit, which we'll have to find funding for more materials.
Well, that's true. He's talking about A3, but yeah,
Yes, on the east
I
side.
don't know how much he spent doing F1.
And that's what we'll need to find out the balance.
Right.
And there's going to be a committee of the whole meeting
On
on
September
September
3rd.
3rd.
We're meeting, well, you can't come next Wednesday.
Right, right.
We're gonna go through their presentation next, but I can send you, this Friday, they're gonna send us the report and the PowerPoint. I can send that to you.
Sure, thank you.
We're gonna
Appreciate it.
plow it through.
Long-term planning.
Yeah, for the next 13 years
What
to
date?
keep us from going dark. So KL's come up with a plan.
Third, right?
It's about 1.3 million a year. No reaction
Six
next to me
o'clock.
here.
6.
I don't know if we need, I personally don't know if we need. Our Public Works Department did a phenomenal job of doing the First Circuit, and I know we still have to do the costing, but it came in a heck of a lot less than we thought it
Yes,
would.
yes.
So I'm just skeptical on that
And
With
then
the new
echo-
machine, right.
Peggy, echo those sentiments. Dave Young, it's his project. He's the one that brought it to light, based on the construction. Quick. So it's, you know, he really pushed it along and he had a strategy for it, so a lot of input.
Good.
Well, and the streets that that are deleted here, like Grant Street, I already had the public hearing. So that's why I added that, pushed it forward to 2020. And Cleveland, I already had the public hearing. So, but I ran out of money because the bids were 32% higher. Supply and demand.
How do you expect that to transfer going forward a year? You think it's gonna stay high?
They do kind of go, you know, we had the previous 3 years were almost flat. So hopefully
Yeah.
it'll be flat next year, but, you know, a lot of it was Foxconn. That was like $30 million or something. WisDOT let more contracts than they ever had in the past 10 years. I guess I don't know if they were excluding the zoo interchange from that, but, so there was just not enough supply, not enough contractors. You know, they only got one bid on national. We've been getting multiple bids, but they're all very high, because and for 80th and 75th Street, I originally had it written that it had to be done by the fair, and they were all calling, oh, we're not gonna bid. If it has to be done by the fair, we're not bidding, because we have multiple jobs, we can't get it done by then, so if you want us to bid, you've gotta give us more time. That's what I hear a lot. So it's almost like they're in the driver's seat. If I want them, I kinda have to agree to some of their terms, or we're not gonna get any bids. So, and if I were to make it done by the fair, it would have been twice as much, you know. Chris St. Clair was offering to come do it for almost twice what we're paying. He just throws in, throws in a big bid just in case he gets it, and then, you know, that's what a lot of them do. But, if I can make twice as much money, yeah, I'll hump and I'll get it done.
Find a way.
If we want to pay a reasonable price, we have to assume that they're going to have at least 10 other jobs. You know, Lalonde is working on 80th, 75th, 58th, 59th, 55th, and National, just in West Allis. And I think they got another 5 jobs in Wauwatosa and elsewhere. So in order to make a living, they have to space out their work. Their concrete crew has to be busy every day. And he's not going to be busy in West Allis every day. They have to bid on multiple jobs.
You also need cooperative weather.
Well, that too. But, so, yeah, when there's not enough supply, then, and the demand is high,
Okay.
I think that's what causes this. So maybe if there's less work next year, it'll level out a little, I guess I'm hoping.
Any other questions? Comments? If If not, could we get a motion to place this item on file?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 will be a review of the charter ordinance regarding the bonding, general obligation bonds.
This is just a reminder of the limitations due to the charter ordinance. It's the $2.7 million limit for the borrowing for streets. That's from 2007. So it is 12 years.
I was a young man back then.
What should we raise it to?
You gonna ask Peggy or Pete?
I think either one of us would give the same answer.
Same answer?
Move the decimal point to the right?
Yeah. Well, again,
We've
I mean,
had to do a lot of adjusting in our plan, and you'll see, basically, none of these 5 years of the plan meet the charter ordinance. We can't do the amount of streets that we need to do and all the street-related work with 2.75 million. Last year, the committee didn't make a recommendation to the council, and the council didn't do anything on the charter ordinance, but we kind of made an accommodation because we moved some of it out and had some other funding for it, so we kept our borrowing at 2.75. With all of the other needs that we have capital-wise, I don't think we're gonna be able to continue to do that. So if we want to get what Pete would call a reasonable amount of streets done each year, we're going to have to increase that. And if it's a sunsetted increase, that would work for us. We just need some resources to be able to continue.
I think we've had that discussion quite a few years in a row now, and there's always been a hesitancy to increase it, but we also just heard how bids are coming in high, so it means we're gonna be even making less progress on fixing our infrastructure, which is not going to get cheaper over time from everything I can tell. I'm of the belief, I think it would be long-term fiscally responsible to increase it somewhat, but again, it's our recommendation to the council and then what the council does with it.
Yeah, we're not keeping up. We should be doing about 3.5 miles a year. I'm proposing 2.6, but, you know, 3.5 miles a year would be about a 50-year cycle, which is reasonable. Concrete road will last about that long. 2.6 comes out to more like a 75-year cycle, and that's not reasonable.
So what's your best guess on a level that would get you to the amount of mileage that you think would be a 50-year cycle financially?
I think I was almost an extra $1 million probably, but per year.
Yeah, so I move that our committee recommend to the council a change to the charter ordinance, changing the threshold to 3.75 million.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So, it's been 12 years since we've increased this. I understand, we're gonna increase it $1 million. What happens in 5 more years? Do we have to come and revisit this every few years? Or do we increase it and maybe set, I don't wanna tie it to something like the CPI, but maybe set it to increase a small percentage every year, so we can actually keep up with inflation. Because inflation, I don't think has gone down. We've not had deflation in how many years? So, if not, whoever's on this committee in 5 years, 10 years, you're gonna have to revisit this. If not, we'll be back at the same spot.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. And to respond to that, Cigar, I think that the best thing is for us to have to go through this exercise and have this discussion and have people on this committee years from now and that the council go over this whole thing rather than indexing it to inflation and then we just ignore it and it just keeps on going up and up. That's my thought on the issue.
Any other discussion? And you did not want a sunset clause in your motion
No,
at this point? Okay.
Yeah. Don't tell the council about that.
Vince Ixnay on the,
Someone might watch the video.
right.
Can I ask one question on the mileage thing? I know this is part of this discussion in a way. It seems like you want to get to a certain mileage amount each year, and that may factor into the actual cost. That being said, is the mileage factoring in the stress of community growth? I mean, you say it's 50 years on the road, but that's based on current loads, or is it based on any type of growth?
No, I don't think our traffic volumes are going up. Actually, they've kind of been going down lately. If you look at WSDOT's counts, it's pretty level. But our traffic volumes aren't going up. I mean, we're built out. There's fewer people per home. There's probably more cars per home, but the traffic volumes are pretty level, so I don't think that's.
Okay, so I was just kind of looking at that criteria. Then is there a way that we can look to reduce? I know it might be kind of the width, and I know we've done it on some streets, the width, to shrink our costs some. That the roads
Well,
are
we do-
narrower,
We do, on every street we're
Try
narrowing
to
it 1 to 2 feet.
or remove some of the right of way and everything.
Get around, there's a lot of reasons to do it, get around trees, traffic calming,
Right,
save costs.
right.
So we do bring them in. It's a lot easier. We don't hit the street lighting almost as much, but. But then at the same time, you're wanting bike lanes and bike accommodations.
On certain roads.
So it's kind of offsetting. We actually widen National to make the bike lanes.
The reason I bring this discussion up is I've been hearing many positive results of the closing by Kegels and the public table, that it actually has impacted the rest of the neighborhood, seeing less pass-through traffic, the residents like it, and seeing how a closure like that, and maybe not, instead of rebuilding roads and looking creative ways to privatize some of that area or bring the people out into those areas, it helps. I'm just trying to think if we can reduce costs by shrinking roads, and in the future, we're gonna also have to deal with other types of vehicles. So,
A scooter lane, probably.
scooter lanes, yeah.
Yeah, that too.
But
Freeway.
I know this all kind of relates, so like in 5 years, there's gonna be other discussions because transportation is going to change again, so.
Any other discussion on the motion that's in front of us?
Yeah, I don't, Mr. Chair, I mean, I don't have
Kelly?
any problem with the motion of, adding $1 million more, Again, I mean, we don't know the outcome, which I don't think by doing, say, 3 miles or 3.5 miles per year, I feel that the cost is gonna be somewhat, go up, every year. So if you don't put any additional money, I mean, you still gotta raise somewhere, you still have to do something a year or 2 years. So to me, if we do it now, to me, that's the solution, I mean, it's cost, it's more dollars,
Mr. Chair.
more money out there,
Yep, Rebecca?
I think I just asked Peggy what the difference for debt service was, because we'll have to be able to, whatever we borrow, we have to be able to pay back within our budget, because that is also a constraint, so.
Well, it's a constraint, but it's more of a taxpayer and a local constraint. It's not a state constraint, because they don't limit our debt. The state doesn't limit anything capital. That's all local control. But it gets to a point of we have to be able to pay it back. But also keep in mind, just because it goes to this limit, doesn't mean that it has to be spent, the limit has to be spent every year. So if there's a year where we have a horrible construction season, we have to carry some over to the next year, we can always save some of that capacity and use it the next year and things like that to
Idea, yeah,
do some
that's-
savings.
thought.
We've kind of been aided because, in the 90s, we were building about $400,000 worth of alleys we did your whole neighborhood, that whole area. We did all the alleys. So I've actually been using the money that I think you originally intended it for us to spend on alleys for streets, and then the sidewalk, like Peggy was saying, I used to very rigidly take that out of the 2.7, but I guess we don't really have to. So we've kind of found some areas to expand, but, yeah.
Any other discussion?
Go sooner rather than later, just because of all the rules that are in place for a charter ordinance, because it would take a few months for it to get taken
Mhm.
care of.
Sure. September
September.
6th or 4th, or whatever that is. Yeah. Okay, if there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We will move on to item 5, draft 1 of our 2020 to 2024 capital improvement program.
The first item is a total of all of the book that's below. So the first column is the streets and the streets related, so you'll see some of the totals we were just talking about, although some of those are not, don't necessarily have to remain in the 2.75. So this is just a very high-level view of the totals. So for 2020, you have the 37.6 million and the city obligation 33.3. These are the requests. 2021, I think we have the request to build the Public Works facility and City Hall in that. That's why it's 57 million, 55. And then 22, 23, and 24, they're significantly lower, mostly because some of the items are things that come up that people will be asking for once we get closer to those years. I don't know if there's any.
And the utilities are really just focusing
Yeah.
on year one. So we will, as this process goes forward, put some placeholders in for water, sewer, storm, and solid waste for utility costs for the out years. But right now, the way the streets plan works is we work on the underground for the year we're working on next. And then that's how we build the utility infrastructure is a lot more labor intensive to be able to put in a plan like this. So they usually work 1 year out.
Right. Any questions on that? Assume this will be another place on file? Or
Well,
we-
this is part of, the capital improvement program, so we need to just keep it open and
Okay,
for discussion for our next couple of meetings.
gotcha.
So it's part of the book, it just is not in the book.
Yeah.
So the first page 5 through 15 are is the 2020 requests. This is the same structure that we had last year, talks about the details, the department, the total, and then there's exhibits that are after all of this, and they're numbered, and the numbers are listed. Numbers and letters are listed.
Okay.
So, we're going into details, we'll be more into the exhibits. I think the intent this evening was just to go over a very high level of this, and more of the departments will be available at the meeting next Monday, and I believe there's one in September 6th. Yes. So more in-depth at those meetings, so I'm not sure exactly how you want to go through this tonight. It is a lot, and you just received it 36 minutes ago.
sitting through a 3.5-hour meeting.
And you might want to focus more on one year versus another, I don't know, but 'cause the streets could take a while.
Okay. I could be brief.
Is that how we want to go?
Talk about some of the streets.
It's fine with me if no one has objections on the committee.
Thermostat was set at 63.
That was to keep my water cold.
You put it down to 62?
75.
Oh, my gosh. I was just gonna make amendment to this to ask for blinds.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
having trouble.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
just, the departments that are here do have the significant amount of requests in the plan, so I don't know that we want to, like, Public Works and Engineering have the most, so I'm not sure that and there's not that many other, like, the police have some, IT, clerk, and then there's general, but there's not a lot of other departments that have items.
Okay.
So
So you think
so
that
we
this
might
would
be
become our
sitting here for
3.5-hour
3
meeting?
What a fire department is,
So-
right? Ready at any time.
We could go through.
I just
fire.
asked if he was prepared to talk. He was ready.
I mean,
It's the fire department, they better be
would
ready.
it be worthwhile to just take fire department development up tonight?
I have till 8 o'clock blocked out today, so that's why it's 6:38. I really want to make better use of my time.
You want to utilize your 2-hour block better.
Yeah.
That's efficiency. Sure. Chief,
All right. You want me to do all 5 years or just, what are you looking for?
hold on, let me find you. Yeah. What's the committee's preference?
Just concentrate on 2020.
I think, I don't know, it kind of depends on the department, so some things you could adjust based, like, you could buy a vehicle in another year, or, I don't know, but other things are more of a 2020 year, so
So maybe just to get started, we could just do the 2020 ones, and then as a committee, maybe we can look at the out years, and then at the next 2 meetings, we could ask any questions that we have on the out years that go with that one. Because the only one that we're gonna, as a committee, recommend to the council and the council would approve would just be the 2020.
Okay. That works.
All right. So if I'm reading this right, it looks like we're at page 11. And we really only have 2 things on the docket. So if you look about halfway down on page 11, you'll see apparatus floor refinishing for Fire Station 1. So all 3 of our buildings were either constructed or remodeled around the same time. They have an epoxy resin on the floor so they don't absorb oils and things that leak from the fire trucks. Station 1 was done first of the 3, and the product they had used on that floor wasn't the same as the other ones, and it's failing rather rapidly. So where the vehicles park, there's a lot of weight from the fire engine there, and that rubs the epoxy off the floor, so it's starting to chip and wear away. It's definitely not a make or break issue, so I know the city has a lot of priorities, but it's something that if we don't ask for at some point, it's not gonna get done. So we're asking for it. If it has to get pushed off, by all means, I understand that. It's already gotten pushed off once or twice, so just bear that in mind when you make your decisions, but if it goes another year, it's not the end of the world. Then the other item we have is the HVAC for Station 3. That $15,000 was, I think, kind of plucked out of the air a few years ago, I think maybe from somebody at DPW. That was identified as a major need in the facility study that was done. And the number they assigned to that, their estimate was quite a bit higher. I think a couple $100,000. I don't know what it's actually gonna cost to replace that system. It's our smallest building, it's more of a residential style building, so I would be surprised if it was as high as the consultants had estimated. But it's definitely time for that system to be replaced. They run a electrical heater in the locker room area all winter long, like 24/7, and it wreaks havoc on our electric bill, but that's the only way to keep that room warm and the pipes from freezing. It's just a poorly designed system. It's outdated. So I would urge that to be a priority for the year.
Mr. Chair,
And those
Yes.
are our only 2 items for the year.
I
Rebecca?
don't believe that the repair of that is in the first 5 years, correct? It's, would be further along than that. So when you see the fire station number 3, maintenance and improvements, we have up to 2024, and it has, the HVAC is not included in there, just so you know.
Okay.
It would be a further, just for the committee's reference.
And however it gets prioritized, that's not my decision, but I will say that it does cost thousands of dollars a year to run the electrical all winter long for that. It's our smallest building, and utility-wise, it's one of the more expensive buildings. And I look at every month's electrical bills, and it's huge in the wintertime. So pushing it off, I think you're wasting thousands of dollars if it gets pushed off.
Okay.
So is that the 15,000 or the 67?
I guess.
It's not the 67. What I'm saying is it's not included in any of the 5-year plan that was submitted for the maintenance from McKinstry. It's further, it's probably, what, 6 or 8 years out?
Correct.
Because those were done on the prioritizations of the whole city.
So are you just looking for 15,000?
That was a number that has been floated around in this plan since before I was the chief. I have no idea who came up with that number and how. So it's just something that keeps getting pushed down the road. I'm assuming at some point somebody did some diligence to come up with that number, but I honestly don't know the history of it.
And I have one question, and so was, with the Station 3 remodel, was the HVAC all new with that, or not so much?
I think it's a mix. There's, yeah, it's a unique system. I walked through with Focus on Energy guy, and he was kind of flabbergasted when he saw it. It's like a hodgepodge of a little bit of old, a little bit of new, pieced together to make it work. When they remodeled all 3 buildings, that was the last one to get done, and it had the, whatever was left in that We Energies pot of money was what they threw at Station 3.
One more.
It's coming off the floor. Yeah, it's right off the floor.
Let's go now.
Except that Patrick. Where do we have to go, Patrick?
You're good.
Yeah, turn this way a little bit.
I just keep hearing Bruce Springsteen, Walking by the Light.
It's Foreigner, isn't it?
Would rather be dancing.
What? You told me I won't be able to do that.
Like I said, it's.
There you go.
I won't be able to
Yeah, be
look over
programmed to
that.
put in those mechanical blinds. I was at the.
Oh, yeah, isn't that
That's
cool?
cool.
I asked for the privacy
Why'd you
glass.
come
You
so
push the
over here,
button and it
Patrick?
frosts.
Shift that way, and I think you're okay. Because only half your face is glowing right now. I remember that from last year, I think.
Exactly why I said it, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I would like to ask, Chief,
Yep, I'm sorry.
the $15,000, I mean, we talk about, by the, Station Street, right?
Correct.
So it's something that has to be really, need to be done, I mean, that's,
Yeah,
for saving cost, I mean.
yeah. I've started to talk to different people about the possibility of replacing that station in general. It's a poorly constructed station. It's got some foundation problems. Its location is not good. We fail to meet our national response standards for response times on the southwest corner of the city. and
That's
that-
where I live. I'll stop talking. I'm sorry, I keep on interrupting.
So ideally, that station is pretty far north in our city already. It should be more central off of Highway 100 somewhere, which give us equal, response time to both the north and south portions of the city. So in a perfect world, if money were no option, we would rebuild that station more modern and then somewhere further south off of Highway 100.
So I don't wanna go back to the old days, between Station 1 and Station 2. So the proximity, like you said, it's too close.
Correct.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought back then, a long time ago, but nobody listened. So what really, I agree with you totally, in reference of station number 3, So that's what now it's in my mind is puzzling, how can, was done at that time, to have 2 stations within a mile,
I agree. I don't know what the thought was back in the 50s, but
And now we do have this station, in the 5th district, which is farther out, really. So myself, sometimes I'm thinking about what would be, to be more like centralized instead of having 3 stations. I know it's probably not part of discussions. Instead of having 3 stations, having 2 stations. To centralize, say, the number 2 station or number 1, either way,
in a perfect world, if we had a blank slate and we could start over, we could probably have gotten by with 2 more strategically located fire stations, but
Really, what would be if we were centralized more, 1 station, to me, I think would serve the purpose. And right now, we have 2 of them by walking distance. We do, really. And it costs a lot of money at that time to do that, It costs a lot of money. So that's something you should be kind of, I think, study or look into it, because you mentioned the fact too, that station is not feasible anymore, and I kind of agree with you, But something that could be done, but make some changes, I think would be for the long run, would be more cost effective, I believe, And that's my,
well, I already got my buddy Patrick here from development, keeping his eye open for a location on Highway 100 for
that's
us.
the thing.
Cigar?
Gotta
I know last year we had discussed the partnership with the communities, neighboring communities. So I know the southwest part, does Greenfield help with any of the response?
So a little bit.
Southwest.
So what you're referencing is our shared service agreement. And so in the past, we had been net givers of mutual aid, meaning we were leaving the city more often than not. Now we're net receivers, and we actually have more neighboring departments coming into our city than we give back in return. So we're benefiting from that relationship. More often than not, though, it's Milwaukee or Wauwatosa that are coming in. Now, ideally, if Station 3 were to stay where it is on Highway 100, in the very near future, we're close to a technological breakthrough in the dispatch center where we could send Greenfield, or even Milwaukee's got an engine house not that far from that part of town, where they're actually closer. We could automatically dispatch them from our dispatch center. And once that technology is perfected, hopefully by next year, we're probably gonna see that in place. But right now, we know it takes about a minute and a half for the 2 dispatchers to have that conversation back and forth over the radio. And by the time they have that minute and a half long conversation to find the closest unit, that's a minute and a half. Our rig could have been on the road, so they're still going right now to that area. But ideally, once that conversation has come out, and it's all just 2 computers talking, it'll be instantaneous, and we'll start sending Milwaukee or Greenfield to a lot of those areas.
Because I know I was by the Southwest Y, and there was a accident or an incident just past it on Beloit, and as I was turning onto Beloit, I noticed West Allis, our ambulance, going down that way.
Yeah.
So, and I know that's very clearly Greenfield, so obviously,
Yeah.
we share services.
Yeah, every day we're leaving the city, and every day people are coming into our city. There's definitely a focus now on the closest, most appropriate unit.
Mr. Chair, I'm older, but I like to talk about some older stuff within the system. Back, it's gotta be about 25 years ago, George was the fire chief in West Milwaukee. At that time, they offered City of West Allis to to have the fire stations, but just retain about 4, 5 firefighters from West Milwaukee, and they will give us the city $1,000,006 per year for that, and we would have the fire station for free. But the previous chief from West Allis, I can't think his name, I saw him at one of the event, he's in a wheelchair now. I can't think his name, you guys can help me out?
I think back then Ray Schrader was the chief, or maybe
Schrader,
Beers.
no, before that,
Beers?
before that.
Beers or Barris, depending
Yeah.
on who you
Depending on
talk.
how you,
Yeah. So, I mean, he says it was not something would be acceptable, it's nothing feasible for the city to do it, you know? And I'm stopping and think now, I think we could have a fire station which was, you know, not that old one, and that, you know, in great shape, a good location, we could provide service on East End and West Milwaukee just as well. And we at that time was $1,000,006. West Milwaukee would give it to West Allis. But of course, I mean, I didn't count that much, you know. So I argued about it, but nothing happened. I mean, that's one thing sometimes reflections come back, you know, I mean, talk about fire stations, you know.
Yeah.
So what's wrong move from the fire department, whoever was in charge at that time, to tell us was not the right thing to do, you know, to me it was.
And I think, Alderman, that's pretty definitive on why this committee's important, because, you know, we have to look not only at the next year, but we also have to look long-term down the road when,
Well, I agree
quite
with-
honestly, none of us might be here, and there are gonna be
That's
people
why I
that are
agree
gonna
with you. I
be
mean,
reeling with the decisions we made back in 2019, and they're gonna say, why, there might be some Sicilian alderman saying that Chief Cooler back in 2019 decided to,
But the same thing back then, you know, really. I mean, you talk about 25 years ago, what's a hell of a cash the city would add, you know, with a fire station, you know,
Yep.
just for us to use it.
Yep.
But anyway, it's over now, you know.
So are there any other questions on the fire department requests?
And actually, on page 13, there are some more requests.
Okay.
So just, I think that first part was the facility, the second part is the vehicles.
Thought that seemed light for you.
Yeah, so did I. And then I turned the page.
So how about the fire maintenance improvements on station 1, 2, 3?
Those are the ones that were submitted by the Public Works Department based
But are
on.
they necessary for 2020?
That's what's recommended on McKin Street.
Those are the most urgent items that were,
But do we know what they are?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
on,
they're
if you
in-
look
I'd
in the,
have to,
it's on 114 to 117.
Exactly.
Itemized items are after the
garage
initial.
generator, exterior finishes for fire administration.
So are those high priorities for 2020?
With the generator, with fire
Yeah.
administration, that's,
I'm still trying to find the page, I'm sorry.
It's
Oh,
213,
14.
page 213.
Okay, sorry.
so I'd have to ask, I know Pete, you're in limbo with the wiring, correct?
Well, for Station 1. Station 2 needs a generator. It's 1970s. Our other consultant recommended that, so that's definitely needed.
But for this, it's fire administration, 20.
Oh, is that? Oh, I see. Well, that's underway, yeah, okay. Let's see here.
So it's no longer needed, is the one that was
Well,
completed?
We probably need that money carried forward.
It's more
Or it could happen.
Yeah, so the generator project is taking forever, and from, AP can correct me if I'm wrong, or from what I understand is when that building was remodeled and Station 1 was built next to it, the decision was made by our predecessors or people even before that to do the work in-house, and they wired the generator at admin to Station 1, but they didn't do it up to code. And that went undiscovered until they went to replace the generator at admin this year. And that has added a lot of cost to bring it up to the code that should have been done the first time.
Building inspection's very worried that it's gonna, what's the, short out, I
Yeah.
guess, I don't know.
More or less, yeah.
So we're rewiring Station 1.
So work is underway, it should be done soon, but it's gonna come in at a much higher cost than anybody thought, because nobody knew about that issue.
So when you say much higher cost, what do you mean?
I mean, $50,000 probably.
And do we don't have a plan for that?
It's underway, yes, we do have a plan, they're underway doing it.
But the plan to fund the extra 50,000?
No, right, we don't have a plan for that.
So the bad news is we don't have a plan, but the good news is it won't have to be in 2020 plan, because it should be done before
Right,
then.
right.
The good news is we're not gonna have fun.
And then, the exterior finishes, I don't know the details on what that is. I know there's some concrete that's kind of failing on the east side of the administration building, it might be in reference to
It's
that.
like tuck pointing the brick, this is for admin. Like, yeah, tuck pointing the brick, some of the trim. We have to look through the report again, but that type of stuff, I guess, yes.
So in my non-engineering opinion, if it's just cosmetic stuff, if that's a make or break item, that,
Well, tuck pointing's not cosmetic, I guess.
sure.
That would,
You wanna keep the water
right.
out.
I thought we had allocated funds. Okay, the one on National, was that one or two?
It's one.
One.
Yep.
I thought we had allocated funds to fix the front that was falling apart.
We had ironwork painted on the front of Station 1 last year.
We're talking about the old brick admin building right now,
Oh, okay.
to do some,
That's what I was like, I'm pretty sure I just drove by it and I actually looked at it and I was like, looks pretty good, I think we got this done.
It
Yeah.
does look nice and new.
Yep.
Station 2.
Is there anything else on the consultant report that we need to, Station 2 improvements?
Page 229.
So how does that work? So I'm looking at the plan that says for admin, it says 25,1 for year 1, and then it says 29,550 for year 3, but those two numbers don't add up to 79,000. So how does that work?
Because this is 2020. There's a sheet for each year. There's 2020, and then the next is 2020, 2022. They did it each year separately, 23 and 24. So after the first sheet, you'll find 20 to 24 with each of them listed.
With a asset rating of 4 or 5, the worse, more severe.
So then you have to go to the next building for the next number.
Yeah, Dave, remind me, what is that asset condition scale again? that
So
you
it's
just
1
said?
through 5 with McKinstry, our consultant. And he rated different repairs from 1 to 5, and 5 being the worst and 1 being good. So
Okay, thank you.
So Fire Station 1 doesn't have anything in 2020, but Fire Station 2 has the 38.2, and that's on page 229.
correct.
Yeah, so on page 229, you've got 2 things that are related to the generator. So we need a new generator. All 3 were bought used way back when. This is Cold War vintage stuff. It is. I think from the sixties, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, sixties and seventies.
So that generator, as I know, currently works, but it's 50-some, 60 years old. Backs up your fire station, so at some point it needs to get replaced.
Is there a permit for that one?
Probably not, because that was done at the same time, and,
So that should be 85,000 then?
well, that wouldn't be this, it was a very unique situation at Station One where the two were powered by one.
Correct, yeah, two buildings, one. So the issue wasn't with the generator, it was with
No.
the wiring work underground. So that won't be an issue here.
I mean, Station Three
That was pretty
was
easy.
right on budget, and
Yeah.
I mean, there was an issue with
Yeah, one small.
putting the, yeah, Station Three was fine, was under budget, and,
And we would assume Station Two is gonna be fine as
right,
well.
right. Station One is a very unique situation. Two buildings with one power.
And then the third item is parking lot striping, and that's just standard maintenance. It's a big parking lot with lots of vehicles driving through it, needs to be restriped every 2 years, it happens.
Fire Station 3 is on page 237.
Bless you. So that generator is done, so that can
Yes,
actually be
right.
off the list.
That could be off, right.
The replacement of it is not in any.
No,
No.
has not been yet. I've been holding off, I know City Hall and everything else is a priority. The interior finishes, duplex sump pump, and exterior finishes I can't speak to. I think that's more DPW or engineering expertise.
I think McKinstry felt that it was run down on the interior, and that it was, and that's a brick building, I guess it probably needs some, well, yeah, I know, there's the crack.
Yeah.
walls, the carpeting, the flooring,
Yeah.
doors.
But you're also asking to get rid of the carpeting, so part of that.
We've actually already gotten rid of the carpeting in that one
Okay.
ourselves, so that might save some cost. Yeah, so I'm just not knowing what the details of interior finishes are, so we've updated the LED lights as part of the citywide project. We've, with our own members, redone the flooring in the station, and the city painter recently came out and painted the entire interior, so unless there's something else that I'm missing, anything interior-wise, I think we're good to go for the next however long.
So this year is this?
2020. That 25-1 matches the page before, 25-1. But the detail says 79,000 for 2020.
Is there a discrepancy?
We're just trying to figure out the totals here. 25-1, 114.
It's on page 213.
Is it 114?
Yes. And I see the 25-1 on the request form, but on the sheet for 2020, it says $79,064.
I'm not, I'd have to look at what was submitted. I just,
Are you looking at fire administration?
Yeah.
Yeah. See that?
Where are you? I'm sorry.
Page
I just did it off of, it's 213.
213.
Page 213?
A114 is the exhibit number.
So the first one should actually, for 2020, should be the 7964.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Becky's right.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
25,100.
Yeah.
So,
This,
Yeah. That wasn't me.
$25,100, Fire Station 1.
What we're saying is fire administration and maintenance and improvements should be 79,000.
Correct.
So instead of the
It's on page
25,100.
213,
213.
7906.
Does the 25-1 belong somewhere else?
Probably not. It's page 213.
230?
Yeah.
213.
So on
Oh,
2020, for Fire Station 1, it should say 79,064. We took away the 35 for the generator, but we need to find 15.
All of the 79 or 70,000 is coming out of the general fund? 79,000?
It would,
Are there any more questions on the facilities? All right, so we've got fire pickup truck listed there. That's just simple replacement. We call them small vehicles. Anything that's not a fire truck or an ambulance, we call a small vehicle. So we've got a mix of sedans, pickup trucks, and SUVs. And we've tried to get onto a more regular cycle of replacing one or so every year. So we're due for a pickup truck this year.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
who drives the truck, the pickup truck?
There's a couple different uses. So our training lieutenant drives a pickup truck, and then we keep a pickup truck at Station 1 and Station 3 for hauling around of equipment, particularly like contaminated equipment. We don't want to put like dirty fire hose back into a fire engine where then it's a cancer risk. So we usually put that stuff in the back of a pickup truck, take it back, clean it, put it back in service.
Will that truck have a plow attachment?
I guess we would reach out to you guys beforehand and see, even though you've been doing the bulk of the plowing for us and doing a great job, it's always nice to have that option because during really bad storms, if you guys get overwhelmed and we need to plow an area, it's nice to have it.
How much does a plow cost?
Boss blade, maybe 10 to 15,000. I'd have to check with Jim Lowe.
Yeah. I think what we've been doing usually is outfitting them with, I think, and maybe you can correct me, but like with the attachment on the truck, but then we just get like a hand-me-down plow from DPW. Usually they're pretty beat up because we don't use them often, but it's just there if we need it. And if we're replacing one that already has that attachment, we would take that off and use it again. And then we have a fire engine. That would be our, hopefully during my career, the last newish fire engine I'd ask you for. That would replace engine 63 at Station 3. That would be the last of that bad generation of Pierce fire engines that we bought. Even though it's not that old, it is by far the rustiest fire engine we have. And on a side note, they bought it as a demo unit. It's not the right mix for our city. It's not the right style of fire engine. It's not conducive for the way we fight fires. So it would be nice to get rid of that. Mechanical CPR, that can come off. We actually budgeted for that in our regular budget this year, and that was included, so that item is not needed. And then the security cameras are just to help update some of our older cameras. We've got a couple security concerns over the past couple of years, and when we've asked for footage from IT, the footage that we've gotten back is more or less not usable, and we've got a mix of, because of the age of our buildings and when they remodeled and things, we have a mix of camera technology, and a lot of them are very old, low-def cameras. So when it comes to actually replacing some or adding to, we'd work with IT to pick the ones that were the oldest and most out of date and replace them with newer.
Do you know if
Cameras.
that was included in their citywide camera replacement? Because I think Tony has 20,000 for each year.
Yeah,
Of
my
the
talks with him,
plan.
he asked if I keep this here for now, and if it ends
Okay.
up getting scratched, we would work together to try to find a way to make it happen regardless, but.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead. Chief, could you just remind us how much the previous truck was that we got for, was it Station 1?
Engine or,
The
well, the most.
state-of-the-art ladder truck that we bought.
Sure. Well, the most recent fire truck purchase was a used aerial apparatus. That was $75,000. Prior to that, we bought at one time a brand-new aerial and a brand-new fire engine. The engine, I want to say, was right around this price. That's about the going price for a fire engine. That's a little higher. I think it was about $620 at the time, but with tariffs, now the price of steel has gone through the roof. So that's the most updated quote from the manufacturer. And then the aerial truck, which is a lot more steel, those run about $1.2 million. And I won't have to ask you for one of those the rest of my career. That'll be good for a while.
That's a big promise.
There's not an accident.
So we have the one aerial, and the backup that we bought from New York.
Yep, so that was the backup aerial.
Okay, and that one's functional and,
Yes, it's getting a repair done right now, but yeah, I mean, we have ownership of it, and it's a functioning fire apparatus.
And
It
then-
went up for an annual service test, and one of the cylinders that holds it up in the air when it extends had a slow leak, so they gotta rebuild the seal on the cylinder, but I mean, yeah, it's here and functioning.
and then we have a smaller truck, or a fire engine at 2, and then 1 at 3.
Yeah, so we've got a newish, I'll say a newish since, my time, my tenure on the admin side, a new fire engine at Station 1 and 2 both, within the past 5 years.
Any other questions? That concludes everything, right?
Yep.
All right. It's about 7:15. Do we want to try to
Development?
tackle development real quick, or do you want to wait on that one? How long do you think it'll take you, Patrick?
Not too
hours. No, we don't really have that much, actually. Already, it's just the 4 items here.
The parks.
10, 11, unless the parks are on there different.
Parks are on page 9.
All right, what's going on now? I'll make it quick. So, on page 9, under park improvements, there's been some discussion about upgrading, well, actually, there's 2 of them. There's maintenance improvements to Liberty Heights, and also then talking about improving the pavilion and the splash pad. The splash pad is not a splash pad, but converting our wading pool to a splash pad. There's some discussion about, is there some way to save costs and et cetera, and let that utility or that apparatus be used more versus having someone stationed there at the wading pool. A splash pad, there's 2 different techniques to that. There's one that has circulating waters, and then the water does have to be tested. And another method is having fresh water run through the system all the time, and we've gotten some quotes on reviewing that. Our current wading pool is fenced in, has to have a lifeguard, and has to have water testing, and our equipment in there is starting to age. If we were gonna do a conversion, it's probably not feasible as much per our consultant to do a conversion of the wading pool. it'd be best to just construct a new splash pad, and then you could have it so that and then, and be used. Those are things that are early on in their exploration, but it's something that should be looked at for that neighborhood, because there's ongoing discussion about how that equipment could be used more, in terms of the neighborhood would like to see that wading pool open more during hot weather. Sometimes, usually in August, it ends right when the college students return, and then we get hot weather and everybody wants it open. I think they're working on extending it this year, but it's something that we've been ongoing, having a discussion. The pavilion, I know we vote there, and there's a number of lunches that are provided through that pavilion, but I know the pavilion was identified and the facility study is needing to be updated. It doesn't have, if I recall, ADA bathrooms. There's a porta potty outside, because when it's locked up, there's no bathroom access in the park. I know that porta potty's been somewhat of a concern. I'd like to have a park that has restrooms for the people who are using the park. And if, in terms of a park, it's probably one of our highest used parks, Liberty Heights Park. It's programmed, there's lots of activity, and it's become a strong focal point of the Liberty Heights neighborhood. Reservoir Park maintenance and improvements. Reservoir Park, we've talked about at some point putting in a splash pad. I know this is just maintenance, but we have long-range plans per the park study to do some sort of splash pad at Reservoir Park, and that's in the long-range planning.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I believe that's in 2024.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question about Liberty Heights? So is the 182, 150, and the 412 exclusive of each other, or could they perhaps be
I think they
some
need to be
duplicates?
combined.
Exclusive? No.
Well, there's some things about the exterior of the building, but if we're creating a new building, then we wouldn't need to do those things.
Right.
No.
So those are some,
But a wading pool in
The
itself,
182, that's
Yeah.
with McKinstry, that is a total major with each floor.
that's just improving it, right?
Right.
If you were gonna build a new facility, it'd probably be in excess of the 412. The 412 itself is just for the splash pad. And if you were gonna do that, so if you were gonna do a pavilion there, it would be another, I'd say 600, 700,000 to do a pavilion. We don't have numbers on that yet. Consultant was gonna draft something and show some examples of what other communities have done in terms of a pavilion. But it also is gonna come down to what the neighborhood and community wants out of that pavilion. I know the aldermen have gotten a few inquiries
Yeah, I mean,
about.
there's a lot of requests for, Mr. Chair, what really is going on, I mean, first of all, I'd like to probably have just as well the school district, hopefully to participating in the pavilion in a kiddie pool just as well. I mean, they're running it, so why can't we have them maybe, say if it goes 700,000, so why can't we share the cost, I mean, by doing that, so I'm strong, I believe we should approach them really,
Yeah.
to be participating in this renovations, really. I mean, all the school district kids, from the area, patronize that, a lot of families are connected with that, I mean, they really try to make something out of it, of that park. There's a lot of interest parents that really like to see a good park, a good area,
Yeah.
good family neighborhood, so.
And then lastly, the railroad park is along National Avenue, in our National Avenue corridor. And when we did this review of our city parks, they identified they're doing some improvements at that railroad park. It's pretty underutilized in terms of public space near the. Wow. But we should probably review this section in terms of the amount of money for Liberty Heights because of the pavilion.
I think it's a 2-year split.
2 year?
I think there's, in 2021, I think it's 350,
Okay.
if I remember.
And one thing to note, that this park is also, Liberty Heights is a CDBG eligible area, so that's something that could be looked at in terms of a funding source.
Patrick, I just am looking right now at a foundation in the greater Milwaukee area. If we have a 501c3 food pantry, food bank, community garden, meal site, or shelter serving Milwaukee, Waukesha, Ozaukee, and/or Washington County. There are grant funds available from $1,000 to $50,000. I think
Those are all things that should be explored. We should look at the programming of the pavilion to
Yeah.
figure out what, there's also a way, in some communities have put in a kitchenette in a pavilion that can be leased out or used by organizations. And I know on the east side, we have some neighborhood associations that are
Yep.
starting or growing, and having that place to meet, might be a good item to have in that neighborhood.
Yep, I agree.
Mr. Chair, did you say when you were gonna be getting some estimates on the pavilion? Or,
I can. I should have them by the next meeting. I was working with heirs on getting those quotes.
Any other questions, or any questions on the park improvements?
And then I have, on the next page, on page 11, under development, we have wayfinding signage. I think the city's working on a wayfinding signage plan around the city.
yeah, through the
Tourism.
commission?
And then, the amount here for Beloit Road Senior Housing is for the replacement of roofs, and we annually fund that out of Beloit Road operating reserves. And then Burnham Point Streetscape, as part of the Better Block project that we're working on the 6th and 7th of September, unveiling, what's being installed with that is temporary, but it might give us the idea of what we can put in there permanently. So we have earmarked funds here to do a streetscape or other improvements in that corridor. And another important project that's been ongoing is funding for a downtown banner pole system. I know in many communities, when you drive through a downtown, they have banners that say chicken dinner this weekend, or spaghetti dinner, or upcoming street festival. They would like to put that type of system that would go over Greenfield Avenue and have the identification of upcoming events. And this is an estimate for what that might come in at. They asked for some participation from the city. I think they could come down from the 200,000 for the last numbers I've seen.
7 or 80,000.
Right. There could be some savings there. And that can go over to Liberty Heights.
Mr. Chair? Sorry, you have a question?
Yeah, how many poles are we talking about?
Hey, just two, one on each side of the street, and it's
over this.
it's all automated. It'll go.
Ah, okay, I see. Picture.
Alderman Haas?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And so, all right, I'm gonna say it, I'm sure you guys have thought about this, but Greenfield Avenue is the state highway, oversized and overweight route. Are we, with us putting a big overhead thing, is that gonna be a problem with,
21 feet high, it's probably fine.
okay,
So
so you've thought about it,
Yep.
you're good? All right, good, thank you.
There's an
I
oversized
don't have no
road there.
problem.
Yeah, I'm not trying to move a sailboat down the
Yeah.
street. Yeah.
Goes up 5 feet, I'm fine.
You
Oh, yeah, that way.
Could fit four
You will be
fences
the
through that.
limbo winner on that one.
Okay. Any other questions on the development portion of the CIP? Okay. Is that everything, Patrick?
I think so.
All right.
I'm just surprised I don't see dog park on here.
It's done.
Wasn't put on the.
That's, is that signed and everything done, and
It's gonna be.
It'll
be signed?
done.
has it been signed? Contract signed?
I know we're
Have you
filming
seen
this.
it?
I haven't yet.
You sure?
I think it
The
was
contract is on the city attorney's desk.
Okay.
We have the funding to complete the project.
Okay.
The contract is ready to be signed, that's based on what I understand. And I think they're having another walkthrough this week on the site.
Next week.
Next week.
In
Monday or
Northway
Tuesday morning?
Fence,
We're gonna probably start 1st of September.
1st of September, so typically when we complete a great public project like this, we cut the ribbon when the snow flies.
Vintage.
It's on the 2019 CIP
Okay.
that we looked at.
But it's a good project just to say, hey, we got a good one
We're
off
gonna
the.
invite a bunch of huskies and Siberian Siberian Huskies and.
Huskies and
Bulldogs?
Bulldogs?
Bulldogs,
Oh,
bloodhounds.
So you have Sparky and the Gruff cut the.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea,
So would the Burnham Point one be CDBG eligible?
correct.
All right. If there are no other questions, I think that'll wrap up item 5 for tonight. I don't think we want to dive into engineering or public works right now. Okay,
What time is it?
7:30.
so then we can just touch base on item 6, the subgroup status.
Sure. I think we met one time. So there's not really much of a status to give. We were working on getting things in the CIP and getting our head around of whether, looking about where to locate the Public Works facility, if there's going to be a building, because that's a lot of the things that have to do with Public Works and City Hall are contingent.
Transfer station,
Yeah,
too.
the transfer station, so there's not very much status to report at this point, unless someone else has, that was at the meeting,
Well, we
has
have
anything.
talked about it a lot. I guess we've gone
Yeah,
on tours.
just not at a
and-
meeting.
Okay.
We went to Oak Creek 2 Wednesdays ago. We're gonna be visiting some other city halls and public works facilities that have been recently built around the state.
Okay.
If you go on a field trip, let me know, please. I'd
Okay.
like to go.
Okay.
I'm available.
I might be interested too.
Okay.
I like field trips.
Right.
Don't want to talk about what Kale's doing, right? We don't want to talk
No.
about, okay.
All right, then if there's nothing else on item 6, we'll move to item D, would be a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I mean, I give you the courtesy of Kevin.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We are adjourned.